welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast, the #1 source for news, analysis, and discussion on the Detroit Red Wings, the NHL, and all things hockey. Here are your hosts, Ryan Hanna, Brad Crisco, and Evan Lobsinger.
So as you know, I am now back from my extended vacation, Florida, North Carolina, golf trip, all that fun stuff.
A tough life, man.
So this time we rented a house. So it was a bunch of guys in a house, having a good time. And somebody mentioned the podcast. I don't even know how it came up. But anyways, I'm like, you do the whole like what it is, blah, blah, blah. And the one guy's like, let's put it on. And I said, no, thank you. I'm good. And I think a lot of people hate the sound of their own voice. But for me, it's just like, I can't do it.
No. Yeah.
And they put on the most recent one, and they're like, wait a second, you wouldn't be on this episode, because they wanted to hear me. I was like, no, thank you. I'm very good. So they went back to one of our prospect profiles. Maybe it was a draft episode, and specifically found me talking and turned it up as loud as they could. And they made me listen to myself talk about God knows what prospect at that time.
First plane home.
I had to leave the room.
My friends do the same thing. Like we'll be in the car and we'll just be talking, and then my buddy will like casually put it on. I'm just like, I'm gonna grab this wheel and drive us into a tree.
The one guy who doesn't talk all that much, or he's not like the center focus of the group, is just like, he's like, that was pretty good. He's like, a little bit nasally, but it was good. I was like,
that's just Brad.
I'm nasally. So that was painful, but I'm happy to be back.
Welcome
I don't feel better than I did when I left.
Oh, and you know what? We all feel really bad for you, man.
Yeah, it was tough.
Brad and I are grinding out episodes, and our group chat is blowing up with Evan going, I almost aced it at Pinehurst. I'm like, I'm going to kill this guy when he gets back here.
Yeah, it was tough, but happy to be back.
We did miss you, although I will say it is complete and total Evan BS that you get to be on an episode after 2 straight wins.
You're welcome.
This season. Thanks, man.
You're welcome.
All right, folks. Happy Thanksgiving. And to our Canadian listeners, happy second Thanksgiving with more food and way more football. Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast, here to talk to you about all things Detroit Red Wings hockey, the world of the NHL, and lots more. I am one of your hosts, Ryan Hanna.
I'm Brad Crisco.
And I'm Evan.
On this episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast, we're going to cover the 2 Detroit Red Wings wins in a row by the 2024-2025 Detroit Red Wings. Wild. We are going to talk about Lucas Raymond and the scoring touch that he has maybe found so far this year and what that would mean for the Red Wings. We'll also address some, I didn't really think it was that controversial, but I talked about some trade possibilities for the Red Wings, and it wasn't terribly popular with a lot of people, but Detroit could have what a lot of the league wants in their goaltenders and what that could mean for them. Other Red Wings notes, including Axel Sandin Pellikka and certain Griffins who might be headed to the WWE, before we jump into NHL news in overtime. Before all that, I want to let you know, first, Hot Stove Stories Rounding the Bases with Mike Tirico and guests in benefit of the Jamie Daniels Foundation is on Tuesday, January 14th. Tickets on sale now. Go to jamiedanielsfoundation.org. It is a fantastic event. It's not just hosted by Mike Tirico, also has special guests Jason Benetti, Dan Dickerson, Len Casper, Dan Schulman. Enjoy their insights, in-depth sports knowledge, captivating stories. We've gone to these events in the past, and it is a great, great time, a breakfast event. So get your tickets today, jamiedanielsfoundation.org. Secondly, go to wingedwheelpodcast.com/links to links to both tickets for Winged Wheel Podcast Night in partnership with the Grand Rapids Griffins on Saturday, January 18th. Or Winged Wheel Podcast Night at the LCA in partnership with the Detroit Red Wings on Saturday, March 29th. Both events come not just with access to a pregame live recording of the Winged Wheel Podcast, including special guests, but for the Griffins event, you get a gray beanie with the Griffins logo and the Winged Wheel Podcast logo. And for the Red Wings event, you get another Winged Wheel Podcast Detroit Red Wings co-branded jersey. This time it's barber pole style. So more details on the links, go to wingedwheelpodcast.com/links or go to the links in the description of this episode. All right, let's start us off. I think, obviously, we've talked about this quite a bit, but Evan, you weren't here. So Steve Yzerman did his usual thing with a trade in the middle of the night. Not the biggest trade in the world, but still pretty significant. Evan, what were your thoughts when that came through? Just messing with you. There's no trade.
I was going to say. Must have missed that one in Florida because I did not see that.
Brad and I talked about this. We thought it would be funny to do. I thought I thought there was like a 10% chance you might try to go with that.
There was no chance.
I was waiting for the pause and then just, what?
Yeah. Let's start off with the first of Detroit's 2 wins, a 4-2 win against the New York Islanders, which was like a carbon copy of the first go-around last week. I should say the second go-around, because they've already played the Islanders 3 times this season for some godforsaken reason. But a 4-2 win where goals from Moritz Seider in the first, and then in the third period, that comeback with Dylan Larkin and Lucas Raymond scoring, Simon Edvinsson sealing it. What do you make of that win?
I'm very okay if the Red Wings and Islanders never play again. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate all the wins. Thank you, Islanders, for being terrible. And thank you, Patrick Waugh, for once again helping out the Red Wings accidentally. Nothing happens for the first 15 minutes of these games. Nothing. And like you said, it was a carbon copy of the last Wings-Islanders game where the Red Wings sleepwalked through 50 minutes of the game, kind of snapped to and went, oh, we should probably try to win this game, turn it on for 10 minutes, and because the Islanders are a bad hockey team, it works. And they win. And it ends strong, so you come away with positive vibes, but thinking back at it, those games were, I know we've used this word a lot with the Red Wings this year, a slog. Because just nothing happened. And then good vibes all around to end it.
It's especially tough because even on a game where the Red Wings are just average and not, completely terrible offensively, which we've seen them do against the Islanders when they had like 9 or 10 shots on goal. If they're doing halfway okay, it's the Islanders. They are so proficient at mucking it up and just clogging up lanes. We can make a soundboard of just lines and anecdotes and quips about the New York Islanders, how they play hockey and what they do to your favorite hockey team. And it was that to a T again. It was really funny because after this game, there was an article, I can't remember what Islanders blog wrote it, but it was like, why should we have any reason to believe in this season's New York Islanders? I was like, damn, losing to this season's Detroit Red Wings does that to you, huh? But like, that team isn't playing. They're not far off from the Red Wings. They don't do things the same way. I think the Islanders are really, really, really effective at shutting down the other team's offense. But like, it is so uninspired offensively that your eyes glaze over. It's actually really nice that we ended the first period with a goal from Detroit, because like, anytime you play the Islanders, you're lucky to go 10 minutes and get a couple opportunities at Sorokin. So Mo Seider scored from the point in the first period. Big slapper from him. Nice to see him get his second goal of the year. Feed out front from Kopp. Fisher on the secondary assist. Palmieri scored in the second period, and that was the Islanders leading 2-1 until the third, where halfway through the period, just past halfway through the period, Dylan Larkin, 12th goal of the season. Dude can't stop scoring. The turnaround shot, really nice play. Dylan Larkin's scoring every which way. He's always been a good finisher over his entire career, but he is scoring however he wants this season. So turnaround in front, scored his 12th of the season, and then Lucas Raymond tips in a Simon Edvinsson shot to score not long after, just 2.5 minutes later, and that's Detroit leading in the third. It happened, I think, a bit earlier this time than the last time against the Islanders. Simon Edvinsson then scored a turnaround trickler empty net goal to seal it, and that was the game for Detroit. It was, I think, another strong performance from the goaltending. Alex Lyon made 27 saves. It was a good bounce back performance from him, and he's had more good performances than not this year. Anytime Alex Lyon's been bad, it's either the team's been terrible in front of him, or coming back and being rusty in general. Sometimes he's just had a rough game, but I think this is still a really, really great season from Alex Lyon so far, and that's what the Red Wings got in a 4-2 win. Is it pretty? No. Do you take those? Absolutely. That's how Detroit has to win this year. That's what they did.
I have to point it out because this is going to be one of the very few times I get to point it out this year, where the difference in this game came down to the Red Wings have more playmakers than the Islanders. They have a Dylan Larkin. They have a Lucas Raymond. They have the guys who can make plays in moments like that in a game where everybody's trying to muck it up. Because don't get it wrong, the Red Wings are trying to do the same thing. And yeah, Barzal's great and Brock Nelson is great, but they're not Lucas Raymond and Dylan Larkin. And that was literally the difference, arguably, in all 3 games this year.
The power play was a bit concerning that game. Like the power play, which came into the game, I believe 6th in the league, went 0 for 3, which isn't the worst in the world, but that was 0 for their last 10 at that point. So you're like, things are going to go from bad to worse if one of the only things providing offense for them is disappearing all of a sudden. Because it's not like the PK is doing the inverse. That's still bad. So that was a kind of a worrying takeaway, but you'll see in a bit. It turned around. So Detroit sweeps the New York Islanders season series. Suck it, Patrick Waugh. You think about the game, you're like, that was a bit dull. And then you think about how angry Patrick Waugh must be to not just lose 3 times to the same team before Thanksgiving, but doing it to the Detroit Red Wings. Like that warms your heart.
It's small victories throughout the season that get you through the 82 games.
That's a pretty big one for me. I want to see him crash out. Like, I want to see him get tossed from the game. I want to see him rage. I want to see him grab the dividing glass between the benches. Like, truly enraging Patrick Waugh. There's just nothing more satisfying as a Red Wings fan than seeing that guy collapse. And he's an all-time great, man. He's an all-time great. I'll be the first to admit that. But when I think of Patrick Waugh, I think of the Statue of Liberty play. So that was Detroit winning against the New York Islanders. It was, good, especially after the Boston game previous. And then the Calgary Flames game last night, which happened not too long ago. We're recording at the Evans witching hour right now, in case you haven't noticed by the dullness of our voices. But that was a 2-1 win against the Calgary Flames, which was essentially the same thing you said, Brad, pre-recording. It was the same as the Islanders game, but just inverse, where the action happened mostly in front, except for the end. So 2-1 win, Alex DeBrincat power play goal in the first, about 6.5 minutes in, and then nothing till overtime.
Yeah, pretty good summation of it. I had, before Calgary got that power play with, I think it was just under 3 minutes left or something around there, I had my game recap draft ready to go. Early power play goal. I assume some hockey happened. Red Wings win. Like, that was, again, Calgary has the same MO as the Islanders, as the Red Wings. They're not a top-heavy team. They're a team that has to play low-event hockey, grind it out, muck it out, rely on some good goaltending in order to get wins. And Calgary's actually been doing it very well this year. They are arguably the most surprising team in the NHL this year with their record. So this was by no means a gimme for the Red Wings. Not that any game this year is a gimme for the Red Wings, but they had to earn it. And the one thing I will give the Red Wings credit for, in the sense that it was at least something different, was they were shooting a lot this game. It felt like anytime they were in a position where a shot seemed halfway reasonable, they took it, which is not something that has happened for a single shift this year. So I don't know if that was direct from the coaches, if the players were just like, yeah, we got to do something, if it was a coincidence, a fluke, I don't know, but it was noticeably different.
The one thing I noticed in this game last night was the team commitment to defense has not been like that this year at all. Guys were hard on pucks. They were taking bodies. They were there early, taking away time and space. And I think that paid a huge dividends. Like, we have not really seen the Red Wings play structured, aggressive defense all year. And I think it maybe caught Calgary off guard a little bit. So I think if the Red Wings can keep playing that style of defense, it's going to turn around a little bit.
I agree, Evan. Their MO has been team defense, and like league average defense overall in terms of outcomes is about where Detroit sits, and that's on balance with the forwards and the defense. So they have been committed to team defense, but I agree, like, this was a really great execution from them to play what has to be their game. And that's not, like, it's not always the most thrilling thing. We've talked about this quite a bit on the show. But if Detroit's going to win with the roster they have against a better team, and as Brad said, Calgary's been good this year, they have to play the kind of game that Evan just described. Committed team defense, hard on pucks, make it difficult for the opposing offense. And that's what they did against the Flames. Not a proficient scoring team. And like, if you look at the balance of the game, I think Detroit did play their game well. But at the same time, what we think in our heads is, oh, Calgary was dominating. They got that goal in the third, and then Detroit scored in overtime. Detroit parked the bus in the third, to borrow a soccer term, or if you're a European listener, football term, please don't come after me. There's been too much online lately. But they parked the bus, and they let Calgary come to them, and Calgary, it felt inevitable. And when they scored, you're kind of just like, well, what do you expect if you're going to do that? But that's also probably a symptom of that's what Detroit has to do, because they don't have the firepower to, lean on the gas the entire time. They ran out of fuel probably somewhere around the end of the second period. But in all, yeah, I agree. Detroit played the kind of game they have to play if they're going to win games this year, especially when they're not matched well against the other team on talent, but they can give their maybe not proficient offense some struggles. So is it fun? God, no. You can point to a handful of wins this season that you said were fun. The end results, like obviously that goal was fun, but imagine they held on to the win in regulation. The vibe would have been way less, pumped up than if they had scored in overtime like they did with Lucas Raymond. But still, Detroit did what they needed to do. They played their game, and that's not going to be popular with everyone this year. 2 power play goals on 4 attempts. The first was the Alex DeBrincat goal scoring. Michael Rasmussen, net front on the power play, as Patrick Kane's been out the past couple of games, just kind of day to day. He's not too far away from playing. Great pass from Michael Rasmussen. Really nice play. And Lucas Raymond had the secondary assist there.
Yeah, this was his specialty in junior. We were wondering if it was ever going to translate up levels, because he was the net front guy in the draft. Like, that was his thing. And it hasn't translated to the NHL, but it's good to see he hasn't fully lost his touch around that area, because I was laughing to myself because when he made that pass, I went, oh man, that's such a great pass from Larkin. And then I double checked, and I'm like,
Larkin's tall.
Wait, what?
I think it's the responsible thing to do to extrapolate from this seasons ahead. Like, this is just, most of the time on power play 2, but some of the time on power play 1. Like, that's just, if you get that from time to time from Rasmussen, that's great. But just in that moment, really nice play. And it ended up being one of the most important plays of the game. And DeBrincat with his 9th goal. DeBrincat still, I feel like he still misses the net or opportunities 80% as much as he did last season. Like, it's not like he's just firing everything home, but he is converting and he is playing that much better this year, where I'm like, no, this is an improvement. This is a step up.
He's the type of guy where maybe you should just look at the end of his season on balance and see how the stats match out, because sometimes he's shooting too much and nothing happens, and then he doesn't shoot, he produces. It's such a mixed bag of what you're seeing on the ice lining up with the counting stats. But he's been awesome this year. We wanted him to shoot more. That's the bread and butter of his game. And the pass Rasmussen gave him was amazing, but it wasn't flat. He had to put that on target, and he made no mistake. So DeBrincat's been awesome so far this year.
He really did look like he took a lot off that shot, and was more concerned about just getting it there, because he knew how far the goalie had to move, rather than trying to, I don't know what to phrase it as, beating the goalie.
Yeah.
That's a man who's missed wide left a lot before.
Thank you for saying wide left. I can't take any more wide right jokes.
I should have known. It is Thanksgiving. There's football on today. The wheels are turning slow this morning.
Yes, they are.
But no, you're still going to get some baffling misses from DeBrincat, but you'd much rather have him confident enough, like you said, Evan, to keep shooting through it, and the production is there. And while Dylan Larkin is producing, can't be just him. So that was good. It was just a weirdly reffed game. I felt like Connor Zary, you were talking about it on Twitter, Brett, but Connor Zary there was a few, embellishments, maybe some easy falls.
The biggest benefit of the doubt I can give him is on the first penalty he drew. Probably was a penalty there, but he certainly didn't fight to stay on his feet for that one. And you could tell just by how quickly he got off the ice after that He's like, yeah, all right, I won that battle. I'm getting the hell out of here before anybody stares at me for too long. The second one on Mo Seider, either he toe picked or it was a straight up dive because I don't think Mo touched him. Like that was bad and obvious.
And then in overtime, Detroit got a power play. I understand that like Calgary would argue the line change and everything. I still think like if you're in overtime, you can't have 5 guys on the ice. Yeah. It was a big stretch to say that wasn't. I know they don't want that called, but that was too many men by the book.
The only argument that I can see saying it wasn't was, and it's not a good argument because we hear this for so many things in the hockey world, but it happens so often. Why was this the one that they finally called? Because every team cheats on line changes in overtime.
I think if it's to the tune of 4 guys on the ice,
that's probably what set it over the edge. Yeah, because nobody touched the puck, nobody really got involved in the play. But yeah, there was 5 of them there.
5 is too many. That's too many guys.
That's too many men.
And then Lucas Raymond, puck in the slot, assists from DeBrincat and Seider on the power play. Someone said Raymond knew that puck was going in before he shot it. And that's the Lucas Raymond hero. How many times have we said that this year? Like, that's the Lucas Raymond that we want to see back from last season. 4th straight game with a goal. Game winner, hero yet again.
Remember when we said he wasn't scoring or wasn't shooting enough and his stats look great, but he should be scoring as well?
Yeah.
That's on us, right?
Well, no, like he's scoring as well now.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, so
we reverse jinxed him.
Who else did we reverse jinx this year?
Larkin.
Yeah.
We said Larkin wasn't looking that great, and all of a sudden he said, I am actually very good at hockey, and has been on a tear since.
I just think Eric Gustafsson, he's not looked that good so far.
I would
agree. No, we got to pick someone that's actually playing.
Who needs a boost? Tell us.
Let me tell you, Marco Kasper, what a disappointment that guy is.
He's doing all the right things, but you really just thought that production would be. No, Kasper's been great so far this season. In case you don't know the bit. So
I've got a theory though. Getting back to Lucas Raymond, if we can somehow manipulate the scoreboard for him to only think it's the last 10 minutes of the third period or overtime, he would score 75 goals.
He only scores big time goals. He conserves his energy for big time moments. He's Leo Messi in the midfield. He's not running unless he needs to. He's conserving his energy. Like that was very.
He's what's the guy's name? Ashton Genty. He's just kind of standing there until the ball is in front of him at an important moment.
He's standing there menacingly. He's feeling it right now, man. So that's the Detroit Red Wings. They won that game as well. That's 2 straight wins. They have New Jersey on Friday, matinee game 3 p.m. And then Sunday, another matinee game, 12:30 p.m. against Vancouver on December 1st. And we'll be back with you right after that game finishes. And there's also going to be a fun interview on next episode as well. So stay tuned for that one. So that's the Red Wings. Good for them to grind out points. Like I know it sounds silly to say, but points aren't coming easy to this team. And they won in ways that are difficult to do and require, like Evan said, a lot of really great team defense, hard on the puck, scoring in the right moments. You're not going to win a lot of games scoring, 2 goals, but when you can do it, you are going to do it. And Cam Talbot came up great for Detroit last night as well. Alex Lyon tweaked something in practice, so Ville Husso was up backing up, but Cam Talbot stopping 24 shots, and that's how Detroit's winning this year. When they are, that's how they're doing it. So kind of fun to be recording after 2 straight wins. It's a little bit of a tone shift. I want to keep talking about Lucas Raymond though, because as Evan said, we were saying he's been playing great, but the goals haven't been there. And to start, it was fine because it just felt like a numbers thing. But after that, we were like, no, he's actually not shooting again, and that's a problem. And he needs to feel it. He needs to feel confident in his shot. He needs to be producing because that's what makes him an all-around really great dynamic offensive player. Because Lucas Raymond's not just hockey IQ and vision. He can fire it. He can rip it. He can beat goalies. He can beat goalies through screens. He can beat goalies with very little time with the puck on his stick. Lucas Raymond's feeling it right now. And it's 4 games, I know. It's a great 4-game goal streak, but I really, you watch Lucas Raymond, you're like, that's the Lucas Raymond who is in a groove. And that is a big, big thing for the Detroit Red Wings offense.
Well, even on that overtime goal, you could just tell when that puck rimmed around to him and he stepped into the middle. I don't think there was a thought of a pass in his head that whole time. He knew the lane he was going to have, stepped into it. He's like, I can beat this goalie from here. And he was right. And that is not something we have seen from him before this recent streak. That would have been him probably slowing down a bit, taking his time, looking for a pass, which in a 4-on-3, maybe there's a pass there, but just the confidence of, I can get him. I can beat him from here.
He's got 6 goals, 16 assists, 22 points in 22 games this season. I think anyone would look at this season and say, yeah, 82 points or anywhere near a point per game is an excellent season for Lucas Raymond. I think we said something similar. This is a guy who's still continually improving. Like, he is a weapon. Like, he is, I do see north of what he's on pace for right now as a possibility for him regularly in his prime. It's going to take, it's hard to do when you don't have the most complete offense around you. But as we've pointed out in the past, it was a few episodes ago where Brad said, the Red Wings power play is probably so proficient. A part of that is because they're not a deep team, but their best players can hang with the other team's offenses for the most part. So he is playing with Detroit's best offensive players, but just imagine how much better his numbers will get when the rest of the team is more complete around him as well.
Matchups are a big thing, and every team is going to coach the Red Wings right now to match up the Larkin and Raymond line.
Yeah.
Because it's all they have to do. There's no other 5-on-5 threats on this team. And most teams are probably comfortable throwing their second or third pair out against any of the Red Wings' other 3 lines. They don't bat an eye at it. They don't worry about it. They play the game to, all right, our top pair, our top shutdown line needs to be out there against this line. Yeah, they're doing a lot on the power play, which obviously is a man advantage. And you expect good players to be able to manipulate that, and they are. But if the Red Wings can get a legitimate second, third line, well, now Larkin and Raymond aren't looking at these matchups time and time again, and the Red Wings coaching staff isn't trying to overthink ways to get them away from the matchups. Obviously, at home, they have that advantage. It does create, and we've all been on benches as coaches are calling out lines and changing things on the fly. It's a lot easier when you can just go out there and play, right? And you don't have to worry, am I getting the top line? Am I getting the second line? Are we playing a 15-second shift because we want to get out against this second pair and yada, 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 all that line. Every hockey player knows line matching. Every player hates line matching when they're on the bench. So there are a couple small things that could still free up to make their lives even easier than it is. Well, it's not easy at all right now, but to lead to more offense for them.
I always got line matched against. It was terrible for me when I played.
I bet.
Yeah, have you ever line matched against a defenseman? That's the kind of threat it was. No, but in all seriousness, that's for Lucas Raymond. It's the gauntlet right now as he's kind of getting not used to it. He's a player. He's through his entry level contract. I don't mean to imply that he's a rookie or anything, but this will pay dividends further down his career. It's incredibly tough minutes, the same way Mo Seider and now Simon Edvinsson are playing. It's tough minutes to play. You don't really get eased into the NHL, but he is going to be battle tested and hardened for when, like you said, Brad, teams just don't have the players to line match against him and the rest of his team the same way anymore. So when reinforcements come, it's not just going to be that the Red Wings have better players. It's that their best players they get to breathe a little bit more. Speaking of which, and speaking of things that sound like a recording, Mo Seider and Simon Edvinsson. And I don't want this to sound like a slight against Mo Seider, but it's just that we know how great he is. But Simon Edvinsson on that top line playing Mo Seider duties, God, they look so good, and he looks so good considering where he's at in his career. You look at their underlying numbers, yes, that'll prove to you what I'm talking about, but just watch them.
No one should have that kind of confidence at their age.
No.
Playing in the NHL, first pairing defense. Nobody.
Their numbers are this is one of the worst offenses in the league, maybe the worst 5-on-5 offense in the league, period. And their numbers when they're on the ice, they're among the top D pairings in terms of their offensive impacts when they're playing together. That's why, and their defensive numbers are among the best in the league among all pairings when they're playing together. That's insane.
I can see the title of his biography now. Simon Edvinsson, The Audacity.
Genuinely.
it's a game changer for the Red Wings. We talked about it all off season that if this guy can come in and be anywhere close to Mo Seider, it changes the outlook of this team going forward because, again, we knew how good Mo Seider is. We know to a reasonable degree of confidence that Axel Sandin Pellikka, what he's going to be. So who is going to be that other, guy? Oh, it's very obviously Simon Edvinsson now. He's essentially a rookie. If he was Calder eligible, he's right up there with Celebrini and Michkov and Stankoven for probably to be a finalist. Lane Hudson wouldn't be the top rookie defenseman right now.
0 goals, Lane Hudson. I just want to say that.
But the head fakes per 60 is off the chart.
I feel like making enemies today, apparently.
No, I want it on record. I really, really, really like Lane Hudson. I actually love watching Lane Hudson. Montreal fans have ruined him for me.
Surprise.
Nobody's surprised by that, but it is maddening. But either way.
Just come home to Michigan, Lane.
Simon Edvinsson, Mo Seider has the potential to be, and this isn't a light statement, the best pairing in the NHL for the next 5 to 10 years. If they, as time goes on, as they get older and they mature and they build more chemistry together and it's the team around them gets better, quite literally the sky is the limit for him. And that's not a tall joke. They both have the elite traits to do what they're doing now. And there's nothing out there that says they're going to regress from where they are now. It's only up.
And what we talked about with Lucas Raymond, hardest minutes, battle hardened, that'll pay dividends later in his career. That's one thing for offense, for forwards like you, Brad. But for us, unappreciated martyrs on the ice, like Evan and I, the defensemen, tough minutes mean that's what you are playing. You are playing against the other team's best players. And for Simon Edvinsson and Mo Seider to be doing that, playing among the league's hardest minutes right now, we say the first 200 games or so is what you need to establish what a defenseman is. If those first 200 games are against the McDavids and the Matthews, he's off in Germany right now, or the other team's, best offensive firepower that you see on the first page of the NHL stats charts, once you get past 200 games and after you look great for those 200, yeah, you're not wrong, Brad. That's best in the league territory. You're in the upper echelon of defensemen.
I think we have to give the coaching staff some credit on this one because Seider and Edvinsson started off on opposite pairings this year. They thought they had to spread the talent out, and they took the risk of putting 2 young defensemen on the top pairing and saying, let's see if it works. And it did. So that pairing has been unbelievable. It's hard to believe how, if you just took someone who didn't watch hockey, you'd be like, watch these guys. How old do you think they are? They would not think that they're anywhere near the age that they are. So like you guys said, the sky's the limit. It has been a real treat to watch both of them this year.
And Evan, like you said, the maturity, but Brad, what you pointed out in terms of they're kind of unicorns. They are unicorns in terms of their talent. Since when are you going to play against defensemen who are that big, that tall? Okay, you beat them and you now have to worry about their mile-long stick, retrieving the puck back. I've seen both of them do it multiple times in the last handful of games. You get beat as a defenseman, which happens all the time, and you have a second, third opportunity to get the puck back, even if you are a step and a half behind. That's not a thing for most guys. They have that physical ability. You can't teach size, unfortunately, as Brad has discovered in his life. But then you also have the soft touch and the silky hands and the offensive acumen and the ability to transport the puck and the good skating. There's no tool really that is lacking to say that they won't be among the best in the league. So we could sit here and just talk about how great Lucas Raymond is and how great Simon Edvinsson and Mo Seider have been this season. And we're going to have to keep doing things like that because that's what Red Wings fans can really rely on game in and game out. Okay, more on the Red Wings, maybe more controversial than what we've been talking about after this. But first, let's hear from the sponsors of the Winged Wheel podcast.
This episode of the Winged Wheel podcast is proudly brought to you by Labatt Blue Light. Created in 1983, this premium light Canadian Pilsner is a delicately balanced beer brewed with Cascade hops and a blend of malt. It's fresh, crisp, and brewed to the highest quality standards. There's a little bit of Canadian kindness in every sip of Labatt Blue Light. How did it get in there? They're Canadian. That's how. You can spread the love yourself by sharing a Labatt. And when you do share a Labatt, you're not just sharing a beer. You're sharing an experience that'll pair with anything from hockey to a hoedown. So next time you're watching hockey with your buds, be sure to share a Labatt, because while you might not all root for the same team, although we on this podcast do hope you're rooting for Detroit, you can all enjoy a Labatt Blue Light. We honestly love going to games in Detroit and seeing Labatt being the beer that fans clamor for all over the arena. It's a reliable beer, and it's great to have in your hand when celebrating a goal. So head to the link in the description of this episode or the one you see on your screen to find Labatt in stores near you today. You must be 21 or older, and as always, enjoy responsibly. There is nothing that compares to watching hockey live. It's not just about being closer to the action, it's hearing the sounds of the game, feeling the big hits along the boards. I personally will never forget how electric it was to be in the crowd for the last playoff win at the Joe. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to games or whatever concert or show you want to go to even easier. I went on the Game Time app to check out tickets for the Flyers at Red Wings game at the LCA on December 18th, and the tickets that really caught my eye were in their Super Deal category, $108 for lower bowl, 8 rows up from the ice. They also had deals in their Amazing Deal category, like mezzanine seats from $60, and in their Great Deal category, including upper bowl seats from just $22. Buying tickets on Game Time is by far the easiest, best experience I've had buying hockey or concert tickets. My personal favorite feature is the integrated seat views, giving you a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. I'm huge on trying out new spots around the arena and getting the most ideal seats possible for shows, so I use Game Time seat views constantly. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code WINGEDWHEEL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code WINGEDWHEEL, Winged Wheel, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time.
You guys ever see that meme of the person walking in the room saying, "Guess who just got yelled at?"
No.
Why are you like this? This man refuses to let a conversation happen on a podcast.
Sorry.
That's staying in now. Well, Evan's here, folks. Anyways, that was me. I honestly thought it was a throwaway thought, because you have some of the best teams in the league, and I mean by these teams have the talent to be competing for the cup by and large. You have Carolina, who's been on an absolute heater this year. Terrible luck with goaltending injuries, whether it's a goaltender who always gets injured or the backup's backup, whatever. You have Colorado, who's been trying to figure this out since they won their cup. Even when they won their cup, it wasn't really with great goaltending. And you have the Edmonton Oilers, who are wondering, are we really going to do this again with Stuart Skinner, or are we going to get some help here? And I'm watching this, and I've said this before on the podcast, and those are just the 3 examples that come to mind. I'm sure there's more. But the Red Wings have Alex Lyon on an expiring deal that is south of $1 million on the cap. That is a dream scenario for another team trying to acquire a player that is integral to get them into and move them through the playoffs. There's no commitment beyond the season. The cap hit is legitimately negligible. Waive one player and you have saved more than enough money, as long as they're making more than 1.15 or whatever it is. And you have a guy who could, and has proven that he can, get you into and steal you games in the playoffs. And then you have Cam Talbot, who has proven that his success last season wasn't just because LA was great defensively, but also because he is just a great goalie even late in his career. He is steady, he is solid, he is a stabilizing force. And when you have a goaltender who's a little bit more volatile, say Skinner, who when he's on is, I think, good enough to win games, but when he's off is definitely bad enough to lose you games. Well, you throw Cam Talbot in there, and then all of a sudden you're not worried about wasting another year of Connor McDavid's prime as much as you were before. And I want to qualify this by saying these have been 2 of, if not the best Red Wings players so far this season. The Red Wings get worse without them. So I'm not advocating to trade them unless, and this is the big if, this could be a year where there's the special confluence of events where you have good enough goalies with tradable enough contracts and teams are desperate enough to give you a lot for them. Goalie trades are weird. Trading in general is weird. You can almost never pin down what the value will be, but this could be an especially hot market where Detroit has one or more and if this happens, in all likelihood, it's just one of them, not both, to get a strong return. And the only way I'm for this is if the return is strong, because if the trade is for like a middling pick, like a third no, there's not really a point to that. I'd rather keep the goalies. But if you can get something better than that, I think that could be on the table this season. I think you could potentially pillage a team who has some strong assets that they don't need right now and say, hey, you want to win the Stanley Cup. That's the ultimate goal. You're going to have to pay a big price, which is a premium.
So there's a couple questions we have to answer first, and everybody listening can play along because it's going to determine what you do next. What percentage chance do you give the Red Wings of making the playoffs this year?
15. Well, you know what? It feels like the entire East sucks this year, so it's probably higher than that, but 15 is probably generous.
It's so hard to say because the Atlantic is, to steal word from the kids, they're so mid right now.
Mid's generous.
Like the whole Atlantic.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably north of 15. 30 makes me uncomfortable. I'll say 23.
I think we're being nice right now because it's Thanksgiving.
And according to, was it Dom's model had them under 5% to do it? So
that's before they beat the Islanders in Calgary. So
this is fair. But those, as happy as we are about those wins, it's probably worth reminding everybody, those were the Islanders and Calgary Flames.
Oh, Calgary's been good this year. Go ahead, Brad.
Midnight's coming.
Go ahead, Brad.
But this season is, in all likelihood, I'm not going to call it a write-off because there's still a lot to play for this, but winning is not likely going to be the main objective by the end of the season. So there is no need to keep anybody on a 1-year contract. So that makes Alex Lyon available. If you are one of the people out there who went, yeah, it ain't happening this year. Next season, what do you think are the expectations for the Detroit Red Wings?
Playoffs.
I don't know. They said playoffs this year.
Did they though? A lot of the fans said playoffs, but even Yzerman in one of his preseason pressers said it's not the only objective.
Well, you either miss the playoffs or you don't. Like, you can't.
No, I know.
You can't
50-50 every year on whether you make the playoffs.
Like,
according to Evan
you can't
Lobsinger.
have one foot on both sides of the fence. We've seen teams do that forever.
But the expectation coming into the season, Steve Yzerman said, he's like, look, I'd love to sit here and say playoffs are the measure of success, but he said it diplomatically, but he essentially stated what everyone was looking at with the roster, which is, yeah, it'd be nice to be where we were last year, but this isn't the roster to be guaranteeing playoffs.
Well, either way, because it's a question that everybody's going to answer differently, which is kind of the point. If you think that the expectations next year might not be playoffs, Cam Talbot's on the table for a trade this year. If your expectations are playoffs next year, Cam Talbot is off the table for next year right now.
Can I interject? I don't think it is playoffs that dictate whether Cam Talbot's on the table. Sebastian Cossa is probably ready next year, and you want a steadying veteran force next to Sebastian Cossa.
This is also a very, very good point. But you can always find that in free agency. It just likely won't be to the level of Cam Talbot, which is kind of the point I'm getting at, because veteran goalies are a dime a dozen. Veteran cheap goalies are a dime a dozen. Veteran cheap goalies who are performing to the level of Cam Talbot are rare. So if your expectation is we want to win some games, we want to bring Cossa up, and we'd like to shelter him a little bit because he's probably only going to he's going to want to play 82 games, but he probably only should play 20 to 30 games next year. You need Cam Talbot. So I fall in the same category as you, where I'm not saying they necessarily need to make the playoffs next year, but the expectation next year should be to win, should be to insulate Cossa. So for me, I'm not trading Talbot this year unless the return is astronomical. However, I'm probably actively shopping him to those 3 or 4 teams right now, saying, okay, highest bidder gets him because you all need a goalie right now. And it is a unique confluence of events where this many contenders, teams with genuine Stanley Cup aspirations, suck in net so bad. Carolina's a little different because their guys are going to get healthy eventually. They need a stopgap.
Will they?
With Freddie Anderson, who knows? But the expectation is they get healthy. Colorado's goalies are just horrible. They don't have an internal solution right now. Edmonton has awful goaltending, and they do not have a solution in-house right now. So they are the two I'm looking at going, Alex Lyon completely changes the outlook of their season for the better. And if the return is good enough, they help change the outlook of the Red Wings for the future. I don't think you're getting a first-round pick for Lyon, but I also don't think that's completely out of the question with how desperate some of these teams are.
That's where I'm at, too, especially if they're banking on their pick being like 25 or later. These teams are going to say, if we're trying to win the Stanley Cup, if we're not willing to give up pick 27 or 32 for the Stanley Cup, then what are we doing here? Because you almost never think that way with first-round picks until you are in the highest of high. You're in the S tier of teams competing for the Cup, and then you have to have honest conversations with yourself. Where I do differ from you, Brad, is I think I lean more into unless the return is really strong, you don't do it. Because I do think there's value to bringing Lyon back next season. And then you have Cam Talbot for one more year, at least. You have Alex Lyon for however long you signed him for. And then you have Sebastian Cossa. If Sebastian Cossa does great, makes the team, awesome. You have a great problem on your hand. You have a dealable goalie, and you'll trade him. We've been saying that for 2 years now, so I understand how stupid I sound to say it hasn't worked for us before, but it might just work for us. Like I know it takes some doing there, but Alex Lyon is a good enough goalie where that's not hard to do. Or Cam Talbot, or whatever. I agree, though. This could be where the return could get silly. It could be a premium prospect. I don't mean like the world's best prospect, but maybe a first-round pick, maybe a high-end prospect, maybe you package it and get a bigger return. Like, you can do something here. If you don't think you're bringing back any player on this team, as you alluded to, Brad, and that player is not going to factor in the future and you are not going to make the playoffs and, you know, the season isn't about, you're just mathematically not likely to get there, then yeah, the responsible thing to do is deal him. You improve your draft pick probably by being worse this year and you get a return. But this is Detroit's best bet, if they have one this season, of a team giving them something big.
And it's worth mentioning because I can hear everybody screaming, Cam Talbot can't play 82. Listen, I understand Ville Husso struggles and everything Jack Campbell has gone through, but those are two guys who have proven in the NHL they are capable backups. They're not going to steal you a lot of games.
They'll probably lose you. So Ville Husso has already lost Detroit some.
Yes, but it's not like you're throwing a complete unknown in there and they're going to get shelled for 5 goals every game. You're going to get good games out of them. And yeah, Talbot's going to share the brunt of the workload, which is what your starter's supposed to do. And I think it's very clear at this point, Cam Talbot's a starter. So it's not like you're moving on from Alex Lyon and then going, what now? You have 2 internal solutions. Are they great solutions? No, but if your expectation for this year is no longer playoffs, again, I hate talking about this because I twitch just every time we bring it up. This season's tanked. Like, throwing Husso out there helps the draft pick.
Listen, we lived through the James Reimer experience. I think we can live through this experience.
Exactly.
It's the most likely outcome is that neither get dealt. Like, just because it's the NHL. And
NHL trades are hard, Ryan. We hear from GMs all the time. It's hard to make a trade. Super duper. I'm surprised anybody's ever made a trade.
And deals for goalies, they're hard to predict, and when they happen, it's not what you expected a lot of the time. So I think, don't bank on anything, but at the same time, this could be where a surprise happens. Again, I can't emphasize this enough, and it's still probably going to get lost here, but not advocating to trade them just for anything. I'm saying they could be positioned to garner a massive return.
Nobody said trade Filip Hronek.
No.
And the return, once we knew the return, we all kind of nodded our head and said, you had to do it.
This guy has not missed a beat, because who are we talking about next is Axel Sandin Pellikka, part of the return for Filip Hronek. And Axel.
The segues write themselves.
It's the dynamic element we were missing.
100%.
Axel Sandin Pellikka leads the SHL in scoring among all defensemen. as a child. 7 goals, 12 assists in 22 games. Just more highlight reels every single night for him. We talk a lot about, the other Bochelnikov, Amadeus Lombardi. You can't really talk about Red Wings prospects without regularly checking in on Axel Sandin Pellikka and how he's doing. Because we talk about the Red Wings right side right now and nothing behind Mo Seider. And I still do think they need help for the immediate future. But ASP is not far behind, and there's never a guarantee with prospects, but he's looking so good. And talk about a dynamic element.
He has the number one element you want every hockey player to have. Elite hockey sense. The dude just knows how to play hockey. What to do, when to do it, positioning, spacing, timing. Those are his best traits. And they are the hardest traits to get in a hockey player. The way he can manipulate the offensive blue line, the way he can manipulate the defenders around him. And yeah, he's only 5'11" and he's not huge. But defensively, he can hang. He's in the right spots because, again, he's smart. Yeah, he's going to lose some puck battles. And yeah, some passes are going to get through him because he just doesn't have the reach. There's obvious downsides to a 5'11" defenseman. But he has everything you want to make up for it. I think it was in Max's article. I forget which Red Wings brass member he was talking to, was saying, yeah, all we're concerned about with Sandin Pellikka defensively is just getting stronger. He's like, we like his defending. He's just got to get stronger. And then you combine that with his elite, and I mean elite, offensive acumen. This dude could be a dude. This isn't just going to be a guy. And that's, I know we're getting in too deep into the analysis.
Go on.
We got to speak hockey guy here to really emphasize the point.
As if we're not.
He could be a man.
Yeah.
I was actually yelling at another car on the road the other day, and Mel afterwards was like, I sometimes forget you grew up in hockey dressing rooms because, oh boy.
Yeah. So yeah. Sandin Pellikka is not just a guy. He could be a dude. And again, you look at the current Red Wings team and system, and Mo Seider does it well. I think Simon Edvinsson's got the potential to do it okay, but they don't have that elite offense coming from the blue line anywhere else in the system but Sandin Pellikka. Again, you talk about things that change the outlook of this team. Now, not everybody who lights up the SHL at this age comes over and dominates. Nils Lundqvist is who Sandin Pellikka is chasing down for this U20 defensive scoring record. So he's an NHL player, but he didn't bring over the numbers. But if he is what we think he is, again, the top 3 defensemen on the Detroit Red Wings are set for the better part of a decade, maybe longer.
And we had a really great conversation with Max last episode, and I encourage you to go back and listen. For all the pain right now, the future is slotting in very, very nicely. You want a dynamic element on the blue line in the Red Wings system. William Lagesson, splitting time between the AHL and WWE. Got suspended 3 games for choking a guy out. I wish there was more to it than that. There's not. He had a guy in a chokehold who literally had to tap out. As the ref was watching, I understand the officials don't get into fights and it's for linesmen, but if a guy's being choked, you go in and you say, hey, pal, let's not do a felony today. I watched that. Someone sent me the clip, and that was the title, Lagesson made this guy tap out, and I went, oh, probably just a scrum, headlock. Oh no, that guy can't breathe. You can't do that, man.
The technique was great. He had the full, he got the elbow under the neck. He locked it in. He didn't put the hooks in with his legs, though, so I don't love the lack of detail there. If you really, really want to win in elite UFC competition, you can't miss details like this. Sure, it'll work at this level, but he still got the win.
You get to the NHL, guys like Brady Tkachuk, they have the ground and pound. They can pass guard. I don't know any of it.
They're elite grapplers.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just because I watched the Iron Claw on the flight home or something, but then I got off the plane and saw that headline, and I was like, did I go through a time warp in the sky or something like that?
You're now in a Greco-Roman universe.
Yeah, it was bizarre to read that, and then you see it, and you're like, it's exactly what you thought it was. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
You can't do that.
Even coming from me, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Which, hold on, we haven't got there yet. Say the line.
I love violence.
But if Evan says you can't do that before he says I love violence, that's actually the best barometer. That's the best measure. Should this be a suspension? Call Evan Lobsinger.
You see 100 of these like massive hits in the NHL every year, and everyone's up in arms. And I would say 99% of them, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
it's fine by me. This one, just a little bit over the line. 3 games seems fair to me. But the one thing I've noticed about Grand Rapids this year is I think they have more fighting majors now than they did all last year. Like, this team does not take, pardon my French, shit from anybody. They're like the Florida Panthers light out there in the AHL. They pass the punk test. They set the punk test. It's very fun to watch.
Yeah, forget passing the punk test. You're right. They're the ones issuing it. Like,
They're Walter White.
They are the schoolyard bullies.
Yes.
welcome to the Thunderdome, mother. And,
Yeah.
it's so fun to watch. And maybe this is going back to when Edvinson just dummied that guy in Grand Rapids last year, and everybody's like, well, that was fun.
Yeah. Like, to draw probably a little bit too much seriousness for this in the morning, but you look at what Dan Watson has built over there. It's not just a talented team. This is a team that's playing for each other, sometimes a bit too intensely, like in this case, but they are a fun watch. I also love, like, you get through all those players and everyone's scrappy, and you still have to worry about Sebastian Cossa at the end of it. Like,
Fighting, you mean?
Yeah. Like, if you're an opposing player, like Sebastian Cossa, if you do something to piss him off, he'll throw one at you.
You know what's a team that could really, really use this kind of attitude?
The Red Wings.
Correct.
That's why it's so
It's promising.
promising to watch, because I think a lot of the guys sort of leading that charge, and I'm sure there's Grand Rapids insiders who would probably feel a little bit different, but it's a lot of the younger guys leading that charge. I think Austin Watson being on that team has definitely provided a lot of the toughness as well, because I think he has 5 fighting majors already. But it's good to see, like, you need to sort of build that confidence that you're not going to get bullied around in a pro league.
And, like, these guys are coming up, like the Marco Kaspers are coming up, and they're not scared by what's happening in the NHL. Marco Kasper gets targeted after a lot of whistles. You notice that. And he doesn't back away. He doesn't back away at all because he's used to it. And that's the kind of thing that makes the difference for guys who have to come in and hold their spot and maybe have a lot of talent, but not, star talent right away. If the NHL players can, will, and do bully young, talented rookies out of their lineups because they just can't hang physically. It's setting the tone for the nice. I love Shoresy, man, but it's setting the tone for these guys before they make it. This all going back to 3 games probably
seems fair
for Lagesson. Okay, quick NHL news. Everyone sucks this year. Everyone sucks this year in the NHL apparently, and you have teams near the bottom of the standings who are like, wow, we suck, and this is bad. And you have teams who are like positioned so well in the standings, and they're like the New York Rangers, and they're like, we got to blow it up. And they're talking about Trouba, and they're talking about Kreider's name is out there. And then you have the Ottawa Senators who, again, I said at the start of the year, I understand they have the talent. I don't know why we're all of a sudden projecting them to be, top of the Atlantic until they do it. Their struggles are worse than the Detroit's this year. And they're talking about making, like, there's news out there, and if there's news out about a Canadian team in such a specific way, it's Canadian hockey media operates in a certain way. They're talking about making massive, like, team shake-up moves, like big names being on the board. Josh Norris's name is out there, and that might be like a light version of what they're doing. What's happening in the NHL, and is there an opportunity for Detroit anywhere in here?
With those 2 teams specifically, no. I mean, the phrase coming out of Ottawa was, everybody but Tkachuk is available. Sure. Call up, see what they want for Tim Stutzle, see how that goes. Ottawa's in a unique position because they're young, their core's up, and a lot of them are overpaid. Those are, like, don't get me wrong, I like Josh Norris. I'm not touching him with that contract. Ottawa could offer him to Detroit for free. I'd say no. It's a classic case of a player who's good, but paid too much. The Rangers and Chris Juryman, I think if anybody around the league has embraced the Vegas ruthlessness, it's him. Because we remember the Barclay Goodrow incident where he said, we're trading you to San Jose. And he went, no trade clause, Nope. And he's like, all right, you're on waivers. And guess who's got first pick in the waiver order? Welcome to San Jose, buddy. And, what did Vegas do? And what do a lot of, look around professional sports, the elite, we'll call them ruthless teams, do? When a player is really, really good and they make a lot of money, the second they start to fall off, gone. Chris Kreider has 0 assists this season. 9 goals in 19 games. I think they might have played a game since those stats were, but whatever. He makes a lot of money for 2 more years after this one. It's probably beneficial to the Rangers to not have that contract on the books. Jacob Trouba, they can find a lot better ways to spend $8 million this year than Jacob Trouba. And the catch-22 with both those players is, the Rangers are going to have a hard time offloading them because of those contracts. But at least they're embracing the philosophy. Like, okay, we need to get better. We want to win. We're a good team, but we probably don't win the Stanley Cup as we stand right now. So we need to get even better. And again, you have to walk that fine line of you're so ruthless in doing so much underhanded stuff. Players don't want to play for you in the future, but if you're winning, players will come. And you're New York City. You're going to get players. So I respect it. I am skeptical that they will be able to do a lot based on just how everything's constructed. And with Ottawa, again, I respect the willingness for change. I'm skeptical they'll be able to do anything.
There is some solace in the fact that, Detroit's not having the best season, but really it's kind of expected if you look at the roster. A bit more unlucky, I shouldn't say unlucky, a bit more discombobulated at 5-on-5 offense than I would have predicted, even with the regression factored in. But by and large, like, you look at that roster, you're like, this isn't going to be a world beater. To see other teams so out of sorts, you're like, okay, you have some time here. And I don't mean this season. This season, we'll see what happens. It's all still very tight. Anything can change. But for the path down the road, it's not like these teams like the Buffalo and the Ottawas, they're running away with it. Like, Detroit is going through the same struggles as everyone else. And that's, you don't like to go slow, but if you're going slow, you want your competitors to be going slow too.
I definitely think the Rangers need to make a bit of a change because they've been running it back literally on the back of all-world goaltending, and it hasn't worked. But I also wonder how much of that is just publicly calling out 2 specific guys who have more in the tank. Because, like Brad said, you can't really move those guys easily. So is this just trying to, put a shot in the arm to get them going a little bit more? Because they are one of the premier teams in the league. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
It's like, how are you going to move Zibanejad and make your team better? It doesn't make the calculus of a team who's trying to compete for the cup right now. It doesn't work. So it's a good point, Evan. Okay. We are going to save some time for overtime on this episode of the Winged Wheel podcast.
We're going to overtime.
Overtime in this episode of the Winged Wheel podcast is brought to you by our Patreon supporters. Patreon.com/Winged Wheel podcast. If you want to support the show, you get access to bonus overtime episodes, which record right after these main ones. And in addition, any other bonus content that we create, you get access to our Patreon exclusive Discord, and you're automatically entered into all of our giveaways. We give away 2 tickets to every Detroit Red Wings home game, all of them going directly to our Patreon supporters. So again, patreon.com/Winged Wheel podcast for all of that and more. All right, let's take some questions from our patrons. Chimkim Nutgit says, is there any reason to believe this is the season Yzerman swings a big-time rebuild-defining trade? Also, it is officially American Thanksgiving. Put on your groin protection and burn some incense because December starts Sunday. Hey, you know what next episode is in the Winged Wheel podcast studio? Right behind Brad is going the Brad-sized Christmas tree.
The Festivus pole will be over here.
That's right. And you two should say, wow, Ryan, what resolve you have to hold that Christmas tree out for all of November and respect that we're not doing this.
We're about to get off the rails completely, but I looked at my calendar for Sunday and there is a large thing that says put up Christmas decorations and I did not put it in there.
No, that is Catherine saying.
Yeah.
Well, I just got to point out right now, how many full-size Christmas trees do you have in this house right now?
They're not all up this year because, getting ready to move and stuff, but 2 full-size, 1 small studio tree, 1 pencil tree.
That's the same number of Christmas trees I have up right now. Step up your game. You're the Christmas guy.
But have you heard his doorbell? They haven't given me the new chimes yet for the year. I know.
Daily emails haven't worked?
They blocked me.
Sorry, that's my fault.
Yeah.
You're getting equaled by the Grinch over here. I need you to know that.
Look, we're game planning what it's going to be when we have a little bit more real estate to work with. Is this the season to believe that there's going to be a big rebuild defining trade? You're in the phase of the Red Wings where you can expect that Yzerman is going to be seeking to do that. Is there anything special about this season that says it's going to happen this season? I wouldn't say in particular, no.
No, I agree. I think we're at the point, and we've been there for a bit, of that trade could happen any day because they are in that phase. But when you look at what's out there, I just don't see it right now.
Man USA fan man Adams says, let's face it, the Wings play better without Patrick Kane. He slow loses the puck all the time and isn't producing much. He is impactful in the power play with entries and passing. What's the temperature to move on from him? So the Red Wings 1-2 without Kane, and Kane's been interesting this year because you look at 5-on-5 numbers. A lot of the time it's like, oh, I wish the Red Wings would produce 5-on-5 better to take advantage of Patrick Kane more. Well, part of it's Patrick Kane's not been that great 5-on-5 overall. He's had his moments, and I think he's been like turning it on as the season has gone on. Yes, power play, obviously, but it's a special case. He brings such unique talent that even for his deficiencies, it's worth it to try to work with it on your lines. And what this shows is that compared to last season, the Red Wings have a slotting issue where last season they could get the kind of guys in and around Kane or on the line that Kane wasn't on, so you weren't just kind of burying your second line to take advantage of his abilities. This season hasn't been so easy for Detroit on offense. So when that suffers, it's going to make it so you're not really utilizing Kane to his full ability. So I'm not going to say Kane is holding the Red Wings back, no, but I do think this version of the Red Wings is not able to take advantage of what he's able to do to his fullest. So if this season goes off the rails, and let's say you're like, yeah, it's by January, February, like it's a write-off, then you're looking to move Kane. But yeah, I think the optimal result is what you had last season where you're optimizing him. Okay, Shawnee Pat in the Hat says, guys, I played hockey when I was real young. Can someone explain to me the strategic advantages of attacking the puck on the PK versus laying back and shuttling away screeners?
So 2 things go into this. One, you can get away from attacking the puck on the PK if you are an elite coverage team and you play a zone really, really well, in the sense that all you're going to be giving up then is distance shots. And a lot of teams do that well, where, yeah, you can have the puck around the perimeter all you want. Nothing's getting to the middle. And sure, every once in a while, a point shot might get tipped, but it's a low percentage shot. So most teams are happy to do that. The Red Wings are not that team. They are not capable of being an elite zone team. The game of hockey is won and lost on mistakes more than people want to admit it. And the more you pressure, the more you force mistakes. The more you force errant passes, the more you force a bad read. Basically, you're taking away time and space to screw up their decision-making process. And the more you can do that, the more and more mistakes they're going to make. And the more mistakes they make, the more you're going to clear the zone. That's the whole point of it, is I am going to pressure to throw them off, because you're not going to get the puck 90% of the time. But and Mika's coach teaching 8-year-olds to do this, to be a heavy pressure team, because you don't need to get the puck if they do something dumb with it.
Shawnee says, thanks, dudes. Welcome back, Evan, and happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Okay, last one here. Joseph Barry says, are you bridging Edvinson when you can, or long-term?
Long-term. The minute I can.
Because, 1, that's just the better thing to do. And 2, you have that Seider internal ceiling to work with for defensive numbers in what you're paying him. And there's a chance Edvinson could justify a larger contract than Seider on ability and production. And if not, if he gets to Seider's level, well, if the cap goes up as much as we've been talking about, then it's going to justify a big number. So long term, as soon as you can. Okay, we're going to wrap up this episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast. We're going to be back with you on Sunday after the Canucks game. Thank you all so very much for tuning in. Thank you to the sponsors of the Winged Wheel Podcast. To all of our listeners, new and old, we appreciate you, your ears, your eyes. If you're staring at us this early in the morning, bless you. and, you know, maybe visit the optometrist after, or don't, because we appreciate your viewership and your listenership as well. If you want to support the Winged Wheel podcast, patreon.com/Winged Wheel podcast. Again, the bonus episodes, the bonus content, the Discord, the giveaways, the ticket giveaways, the exclusive merch giveaways, all that and lots more. And if you want to support the show, but Patreon's not for you, leave us a rating and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Hitting that subscribe button and leaving the rating, whether it's the thumbs up or the stars or whatever, it does help. Tell a friend about the show. To all of our Patreon supporters, this show does not happen without you. And to our name level supporters on Patreon, thank you so much. Arjun Shankar, Yves Bartels on behalf of the Sarah Grand Foundation, Aikfer, Samuel Soderholm, Icon, Alexander Hansen, Ghost of OSBP, Glenn Brabham, Croner's Left Knee, Ashley Whitehead, Sea Lion, Matthew M. Rice, Adam Rose, Adam Zoiza, Admiral Matt S. of the Cheesebag Navy, Asher Killian, Beer League Legend, Best James Bond, Carl Brutanen Analuski, Carl Provi, Citizen High Five, Clip Clop Nene, Connor Scovey, Craig Kibble, David Martin, Denny's Gamer Girl, Derek Instam, Cider, Dickens, formerly Marlon Winchester, DJ Denton, Eric Hill, Jin and UC, Give Blood Fight Probert, Goose Looney's Drinking Club, Griffin God Creatives, Hockeytown Love, Hockeytown Matt, Hassam Al-Qassem, Jay Gollum, Jacob Turner, Jeff Pridemore, John Ingalls, Jonathan Miller, Kaylin Wood, Marcus, Matt Keeler, Marty, Matt McKay, Michael Edlund, Mr. Kuzi, R.A., Riley Enright, Roses Are Red, Violets Are Blue, Pickleball is Dumb, and Golf Sucks Too, Roy Donk, Ryan Britt, Scott Martin, Skeletor, Stephen Ordeleb, That's What I Appreciate About You, Wallman's Elite, Dancing D, Iserplan Stan, Aaron Hudson, General Andy Bohan of the Cheesebag Army, Sam Bankson, A.A. Ron, A.B., All Motor No Hands, Ann Stanislavski, Antonio Gracias, Axel Sandin Pellikka, Bellingham Acid Balls, Bex, Chimkim Nutgits, Commander Ben Baird of the Cheeseback Space Force, Connor Layton and Corey Prida, Damn It Feels Good to Be a Chungus, Darren Fick, Datsukes Dangleberries, Deep In, Cider, Dylan Larkin, Trade Sacrifice, Eric Nance, Evan Beckner. Welcome back, Evan. Frank Stanley, Gene Sullivan, Grepsky, Griffey Boy, James Pridemore, Jeremiah Dobo, Jim, JM Rhapsody, Joey Jojo Shabadoo, Josh Yelton, Chaotic Monkey, Keenan O'Donohue, Casper the Unfriendly Ghost, Kevin McCracken, Quaz, Larkin's Loyal Lemming, Les Grossman's Ungodly Firestorm, Linda Hull, Lucas Raymond, Ophelia, As Good As It Gets, Ryan M, Shawnee Patton the Hat, Steven, That Other Guy, The Hodag, The Hat 123, Trent Thorough, Wings Fan in St. Louis, Scott, your second favorite patron. Thank you all so very much. Shawnee, welcome to the Dub Dub Club. We have to go do some exorcisms from Brad and Evan's stomachs.
Thanks for tuning in to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Be sure to visit wingedwheelpodcast.com, where you'll find links to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll also find ways to support the show, like Patreon, official podcast merchandise, and more. And don't forget to follow us on X at Winged Wheel Pod, at Ryan Hanna, WWP, at Brad Crisco, and at Hockeytown Evan, as well as Winged Wheel Podcast on Instagram.